Broadcasting live from the mountains of Montana, get ready for an hour of pure, unapologetic conservative talk radio. Liberals beware, because this is the Wise Conservative Show.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Wise Conservative Show. I'm your host, Connor Wise. We have a lot of stuff packed into this episode from a poll that actually just came out about the economy to Mueller, even to the FISA memo that's been buzzing around for the past week or so. So we have a lot to get through. And I did want to start off with this new poll about the economy because it is pretty important to look at these things when the end of 1 year comes around. So it's been a year and 4 days since President Trump took office. And, well, what do voters think about the economy? Of course, this is a Fox News poll, folks, so it's definitely going to be a little skewed towards the president. But it is still interesting to see where people are actually lying on the spectrum of how they believe our nation is going and where they believe Trump has taken this nation itself. So a poll that just came out asked, has the Trump administration made the economy better or worse? This was conducted from January 21st through the 23rd, so yesterday and then a few days before that. 40% said that he has made it better, 22% said that it is worse, and 34% said that it is the same. Now, that's obviously a majority saying that it's better, and that's in good part because the economy actually is better. Approval of our president is actually above 50% for the first time since he took office. His overall approval is at 45% right now, over all of them, like the average. And that comes close to matching his highest ratings, which he received soon after taking office, 48 to 47%. His low point of approval was the previous poll of that, which was when 38% approved in October of 2017, so quite a while ago. They also polled on President Trump's job performance. So now we see that he is doing much better. Many more people are approving. The points are up since before. We can see that 86% of Republicans now approve of President Trump, and that 58% of white men approve versus 60% last year. And approval among white evangelical Christians stands at 74%. Last year at this time, it was 76%. Some of the recent improvements in Trump's overall job rating undoubtedly comes from the economy, and the poll finds 49% now give it positive ratings. The last time many voters felt as positively was 17 years ago in 2001. So that's quite a while ago that people felt that good about the economy. In addition, a record 17% say that the economy is in excellent shape. That's up from 6% in August and 3% in December of 2016. In turn, going back to 1998, the previous high was 13% in June of 2000. Of course, there's room for improvement, voters feel. A majority, 53%, remain unhappy with the direction of our country. 45% are satisfied with the way things are going in the country today. And that's the same number as felt that way at the 100-day mark of the Trump administration back in April. Nearly half think that the country is worse off than it was a year ago, with 46%, while a large minority, 40%, say that it is better off, and 11% say that there has been no change. So this is a lot of numbers that I'm giving you guys, and I'm going to give you one more poll here. So this is actually looking to the future. 2020, if people were to vote if the election were held today, 35% would re-elect Trump and 56% said someone else. Now, that's just 1% difference in both of them since April 2017, 1% down in re-elect Trump and 1% up in someone else. And of course, that has an error of plus or 3 minus percent. So not really any change in that regard there from April last year. So what do these numbers actually mean, folks? Well, we can see that even though the economy is hitting record highs in the stock market, the economy is booming considerably. Looking back at the past few years, the economy is way better than it has ever been. But even though that's happening, there's still 34% that don't think there's any change, and there's 22% that think that it's worse. And why is that, folks? Well, this can all be diagnosed with the problem that is fake news. With the problem that is people are saying that Trump has crashed the economy. People are saying that the stock market isn't actually doing good because of Trump. And so people do believe it. There's always going to be people that believe that kind of stuff. It should be way higher than 40% that think that the economy is better because, folks, the economy is better. But, people are always going to be following this misguided information from the liberal media. President Trump's approval ratings are going up every day, which is a good thing, folks. And this is something that the left never said that would never happen. The left said that President Trump would end with 15-20% approval ratings, that he'd be the lowest percentage in the history of American presidents. That's not going to happen, folks, and his rating keeps going up and up. And that's because he keeps delivering on those promises that he made in the campaign. That's something that most politicians don't do. But that's something that our president is doing. And so, yeah, people are noticing that, and his numbers are going up because of it. Furthermore, we looked at the condition, not just whether it's better or worse, and that's actually split. 49% say it's good, and 49% say that it's poor. That's kind of the same thing that we talked about with whether it's better or worse. It's really just who you're listening to. Because if you're listening to people who are actually reporting facts, you're going to know that it is better off than it was before. But, people are listening to the liberal media, and they're listening to these lies and this fake news. And so they're not believing the truth. And so that is definitely skewing these people's viewpoint, and it's definitely skewing the way that they're talking about all of these different things. Now, I've never really liked these polls about whether you would vote for someone today if it were the election. I mean, the election is in 3 years. It's in 2020. And there's really no way to tell how the rest of President Trump's term is going to go. So I've never really liked these polls. They always seem to do them, but I don't really think they say much. So I kind of ignore those most of the time because those don't really say much at all. But what we do see out of this is that President Trump's numbers are rising throughout the entire thing. And so it is a great thing. It's a great thing that he's been doing. All these promises that he's been delivering on has been paying off and has been working. And we can see that in his numbers. But moving on to some actual news instead of just a poll here, we can see now that it just came out actually today that the DOJ is threatening to subpoena the 23 jurisdictions if they don't turn over information about their sanctuary policies. And as one would think would happen, there's a backlash that was triggered from this. Mayors across the country are pulling out of a White House meeting now. In letters to New York City, Chicago, San Francisco, and many other sanctuary jurisdictions, the Justice Department demanded records relating to whether these localities are, quote, unlawfully restricting information sharing by law enforcement officers with federal immigration authorities. In a statement, Attorney General Jeff Sessions said, quote, I continue to urge all jurisdictions under review to consider policies that place the safety of their communities and their residents at risk. Protecting criminal aliens from federal immigration authorities defies common sense and undermines the rule of law. This letter drew a fiery response from several Democratic mayors, and that, of course, includes New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, who said they would boycott a planned working session with the president at White House on Wednesday. Quote, "I will not be attending today's meeting at the White House after Donald Trump's Department of Justice decided to renew their racist assault on our immigrant communities. It doesn't make us safer, and it violates America's core values." I'll get to that in a second, folks. There's more of this, though. New Orleans Mayor Mitch Landrieu, who serves as the president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, also said he would boycott the meeting. Quote, "Unfortunately, the Trump administration's decision to threaten mayors and demonize immigrants yet again and use cities as political props in the process has made this meeting untenable." Jeff Sessions went on to say, quote, "Protecting criminal aliens and federal immigration authorities defies common sense." Folks, he's exactly right. And when the White House said that it was disappointed in the mayors who chose to skip the meeting but still held the event, well, of course they're going to be disappointed. And of course, they have every right to be, because these mayors are not doing what's in the best interest of our nation. Quote, "We are disappointed that a number of mayors have chosen to make a political stunt instead of participating in an important discussion with the president and his administration." And that was from the White House Deputy Press Secretary Lindsay Walters. Folks, what we see here is that, I mean, these are the same people that have been doing this ever since the idea of a sanctuary city was conceived. They think that they're able to break federal law. They think that they're able to get away with anything. They think that they're the ones actually helping our nation. They continue to say that those of us who oppose sanctuary cities, those of us who oppose illegal immigration, are racist and anti-immigrant, and that comes exactly from Bill de Blasio's tweet. Apparently, the DOJ is renewing a racist assault on immigrant communities. And it, quote, "violates America's core values." Folks, our nation has always had laws, our nation will always have laws, and our nation will always have to follow those laws. Whether you're some person living in a small house, a mayor living in a mansion, or the President of the United States, you have to follow the laws. You have to follow the guidelines, the codes, all of the different rules put into place. That is how a nation, that's how a state, that's how a county, and that is how a city works. All of them have their own laws, all of them have their own guidelines, their own codes, and you have to follow them. But for some reason, these mayors and some governors don't think that you should actually have to do that. For some reason, they think that they're able to go around the law, and they think that they're able to do whatever they want. Folks, they're blatantly disregarding the rule of law. They're blatantly disregarding the wants of America. All right, I'm going to be on a quick commercial break. Don't go anywhere. This is the Wise Conservative Show. Hey everybody, Connor Wise here with an exclusive sneak peek of the Wise Conservative Show. Don't go anywhere, I'll be right back. With universal health care, which is essentially the next step beyond Obamacare, this is where Democrats want to take the country. This is where the left wants us to go. With universal health care, now there's no insurance companies, no one competing whatsoever, and the government controls it all.
Calling all young conservatives. Have you ever wanted to write for an online publication? What about host your own conservative radio program? Now you can, thanks to youthrevolt.org. Youth Revolt is a conservative media network for young people, the goal of which is to educate our fellow Americans and also to expose the left-wing indoctrination that goes on in classrooms across the country. Become part of a team that is dedicated to taking the country back, one radio program or opinion column at a time. If you're interested, go to youthrevolt.org and click on Join Us on the top of the page. Fill out our brief questionnaire, and one of our representatives will be in touch with you in no time at all. The time to reclaim our future is now. Be a part of something that's bigger than yourself, and join the movement today. Youth Revolt. Speak without fear. My friends, I'm going to be blunt with you. There are a lot of frauds out there today. People who claim to be conservatives and yet, in one way or another, believe that more government is the solution to our problems. That's not what conservatism is about, and even more than that, that's not what our Constitution is about. I'm Jason Veely, a recent college grad who has the guts to say what needs to be said without pulling any punches. On my radio show, you can expect 100% pure conservatism every single weeknight at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Join me as we discuss history, liberty, and conservative philosophy in a style that is just as entertaining as it is educational. Who says we can't have fun tearing down the liberal establishment? Tune in to the Jason Veely program live every weeknight at 7 o'clock on youthrevolt.org. I'll see you out on the battlefield.
America is known for its expansive wilderness for all to explore, and for many, that exploration is an important hobby. This exploration is why the Survivalist was created. On this blog, you will find expansive information on all things wilderness, from what knife you should carry to what backpack gives you the best bang for your buck. This group of 4 writers has created a very diversified and useful site, which I personally recommend. The site has given me much knowledge on a variety of topics, and I urge you to check it out at the-survivalist.weebly.com. Once again, that is the-survivalist.weebly.com.
I was assuming that it meant coverage, but if he says that there's a small group of people who understood what it was, so I'm like, what is it? What is confetti?
He gets 2 scoops. You know, everyone around the table gets 1, and no word if there were sprinkles.
He paid $38 million, looks like $38 million in taxes.
Are you tired of listening to the snowflake liberal media report about ice cream scoops and typos instead of real facts? Well, at the Wise Conservative Show, we promise you that we will not report about Kofifi, but instead about the truth, instead about the facts about what's going on in our nation. Join us every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the Wise Conservative Show for your dose of unapologetic conservative talk radio. The Wise Conservative Show, only on Youth Revolt. Welcome back to the Wise Conservative Show. I'm your host, Connor Wise. So we all know that North Korea is one of our enemies. We all know that they're crazy, that they essentially enslave thousands of people, that they treat their citizens like dirt, and then that they really have no respect for America. Well, apparently, that's a little hard for NBC News show host Lester Holt to get a grip of. After he went to North Korea, it seems as if he was proposing or propelling forward some North Korean propaganda So he returned early from his North Korea trip after scathing reviews for a very good reason. Reported for nightly news from a ski resort in North Korea. Well, this facility was the brainchild of Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un, and it's typically empty. The resort was built to create the appearance of a prosperous nation, but was largely deserted during the peak 2017 ski season, according to multiple reports. But for Holt's appearance, the North Korean government appears to have brought in skiers, and this is where it's even more obvious that they're all staged, because they're all wearing identical outfits, and they staged the scene with this. And this is apparently something that Holt did not appear to realize. And folks, I'm looking at a picture, a screenshot of the actual report right now, and it's very obvious that these people aren't usually there, that they're staged. I mean, yeah, they're wearing the same jackets, the same clothes, and they all look lost, they all look confused. A lot of them don't even have skis or anything. They're just standing there walking around. So the Today Show actually took to Twitter and tweeted out an NBC News exclusive, quote, "We have been treated with respect here," from Lester Holt, and is just a few hours outside the capital of North Korea. He's saying that they've been treated with respect in North Korea and that that's a good thing. The resort is, quote, a source of immense pride for a country trying to present a new and modern face to the world. That is from Lester Holt. A new and modern face to the world. Folks, this is North Korea he's talking about. NBC News didn't respond to requests for comments as to whether Holt's unexpectedly early departure from North Korea was related to the embarrassing ski resort snafu. But inside 30 Rockefeller Plaza, NBC's more seasoned journalists seemed to be cringing at the moment. An NBC insider asked, quote, "Who produced this garbage? It is field producing 101. Don't do a stand-up somewhere that has been staged by a dictatorial regime." Seems pretty common sense to me, folks. Holt's coverage was overseen by embattled NBC News president Noah Oppenheim, who traveled with Holt and a camera crew to North Korea weeks before the Peacock Network will cover the 2018 Winter Olympics in South Korea. Holt's credulous reporting has cast a cloud over the network's ability, of course, to accurately portray the Korean peninsula going into the Olympics, and critics everywhere, left and right, are slamming Holt's coverage as being sycophantic, decidedly uncritical, and feeding propaganda. President Trump's nominee for U.S. ambassador to Germany, Richard Grenell, even took to Twitter to offer some advice to Holt here. Quote, "Pro tip for Lester Holt. When everyone is wearing matching jackets, it is a staged event." The Daily Mail wrote, quote, "It's been reported that the state-of-the-art resort cost the Kim regime $35 million to build, even with slave labor, while most of the country starved. It is a bizarre thing to prioritize an impoverished nation with a ramshackle infrastructure where around 40% of its people are undernourished." Folks, this is honestly something I never thought I would see, even from somewhere like NBC. I didn't think I'd see people going into North Korea, propelling forward their propaganda, and saying that North Korea is trying to change itself, that it's a good place, that they were treated with respect while they were there, and that North Korea is trying to change the way that the world views them for a new, better version of North Korea. It hasn't been a month since North Korea last threatened the United States, folks. It hasn't been a month since North Korea last tested a ballistic missile. They're not trying to change the way that they appear to the world. But you see what's coming off here, what's happening. Lester Holt, of course, is very anti-Trump. He's very liberal. What's happening is he's so anti-Trump that because President Trump seems to hate North Korea, he's going to be the opposite of that. He's going to love North Korea, say that they're doing a good thing. Because that's what's good for us. To welcome our enemies into our home. To say that North Korea isn't an enemy. To say that North Korea is actually a good nation where there's no issues. North Korea is a communistic regime that has killed millions of its people, that has enslaved thousands of its people, that doesn't give its people food at all. I mean, the nation itself is in shambles. And we already knew that they had these sites like this that are to give the illusion of a very prosperous nation where they spend billions of dollars on them. Millions and billions of dollars on these sites. Just to give the illusion that they're not mistreating their citizens and that they have a good nation. If you actually have a good nation, you're not going to spend billions or millions of dollars on a site like this. If you actually had a good nation, you wouldn't have to have journalists try to claim that you're changing how you are perceived for a better. Folks, it's kind of just crazy the fact that anyone from America would ever say that North Korea is moving in the right direction. Because they haven't moved anywhere except against America more. And they're not going to change that anytime soon, folks. But the fact that Lester Holt thinks that they are is really astounding, and it kind of shows how his anti-Trump agenda has shrouded his view and has changed the way that he looks at reality. If Trump does anything, he's on the opposite side. Trump criticizes North Korea, he's going to start praising them. And it's just sad that he stooped that low. So a couple weeks ago, I talked about FISA and how there was going to be a renewal of a program, the Surveillance on International Affairs program within that. Well, there's more stuff on FISA that I didn't really cover because it just came out within the last week. So what we're seeing now is there's actually a FISA memo that could actually reveal government surveillance abuses. And now a top Justice Department official is urging the House Intelligence Chairman, Devin Nunes, to not release the memo to the public. In the letter that the Justice Department official wrote, Assistant Attorney General Stephen Boyd wrote, quote, We would believe it would be extraordinarily reckless for the committee to disclose such information publicly without giving the department and the FBI the opportunity to review the memorandum and to advise the HBSCI of the risk of harm to national security and to ongoing investigations that could come from public release. He continued, Though we are currently unaware of any wrongdoing related to the FISA process, we agree that any abuse of that system cannot be tolerated. Now, this week, Nunes is actually traveling in the Middle East, but the demand is actually not being well received on Capitol Hill. A senior congressional intelligence source said, quote, It's really stupid they would try to block us from releasing the memo. It only makes it worse for them, and is more evidence that DOJ is trying to obstruct our investigation. The 4-page memo is being described by lawmakers as shocking, troubling, and alarming, with one congressman likening the details to KGB activity in Russia. It is believed to include information about government surveillance conducted during the Obama administration. Last week, Republican lawmakers said that they could not yet discuss the contents of the memo they reviewed on Thursday after it was released to members by the House Intelligence Committee. But they say the memo should be immediately made public. Quote, It is so alarming the American people have to see this. And that is Ohio Representative Jim Jordan. North Carolina Representative Mark Meadows said, quote, It's troubling. It is shocking. Part of me wishes that I didn't read it because I don't want to believe that those kinds of things could be happening in this country that I call home and love so much. Florida Representative Matt Gaetz said he believed people could lose their jobs once the memo is released. I believe the consequence of its release will be major changes in people currently working at the FBI and the Department of Justice, he said, and he referenced DOJ officials Rod Rosenstein and Deputy Attorney General, and of course Bruce Orr. Now, all the people that he referenced in this were people that are holdovers from the Obama administration. And he referenced them for a reason, folks. So, we don't know what's in this memo. We don't know what exactly happened. But presumably, the Obama administration used the FISA program to survey probably the Trump or the Trump campaign or their political enemies. Or maybe they could have even used it to just to spy on Americans. We don't know, folks. But we know that it's going to be alarming. We know that it's going to be groundbreaking. We know that it's something that, quite honestly, is a misuse of power that the Obama administration used. We know that's going to happen. And there's a reason why Democrats don't think we should release this. There's a reason why the DOJ and the holdovers from the DOJ don't think we should release this. Because these people were a part of it. These people were a part of whatever went on and whatever this memo reveals. Folks, it's troubling times when we have lawmakers and we have DOJ officials trying to keep the truth from the public because it could risk their jobs. That's corruption at its finest. And the Obama administration was riddled with it, but this is a new sort of corruption that we're seeing. We have, I believe every Republican I've seen any statement from, they're saying that we need to release this memo. Anyone who has read the memo that is Republican has said that we need to release it. Anyone who's Democrat that's read it says that we don't need to. And it's because they're protecting their own party here. They're making this partisan instead of about America. Folks, even if this was something from the Bush administration, if this was something from the Trump administration, it was about something about abusing a power on surveillance of U.S. citizens, I would still want it released. It doesn't matter what party the administration that it's about belongs to. It matters what happened to the American people and what power was abused, what corruption went on. This shouldn't be partisan, but Democrats are making it partisan. They're making it partisan by not wanting to release it just because it talks about the Obama administration. That's not how this should be going on. They're not having America's interest at heart when they do that. They're not having your interest, they're not having my interest, they're not having anyone's interest that is a citizen of this country in mind when they say that it shouldn't be released. Because, folks, we deserve to know what our government is doing. We deserve to know how they're abusing their power and how they're actually using this surveillance. We deserve to know as the American people. Not as Republicans, not as conservatives, but as Americans. Everything doesn't need to be made into partisan politics. But it seems like these days, people make everything about partisan politics. Even something like surveillance or something like abuses of power in the government. That doesn't need to be partisan. That needs to be about America and about holding our lawmakers, our officials, our executive branch in check. Holding our government in check. Because that's how America was founded, so that the people are in control of the government. But when the government abuses its power, when the government reaches around and doesn't tell us, when the government does all these things secretly and corruptly, it goes directly against American ideals. It goes directly against the ideals that our nation was founded on, the ideals that our nation has continued to prosper upon for centuries. This memo, for the sake of our nation, needs to be released, folks. If it isn't released, then we know that our government is more corrupt than we ever could imagine. Because then those who are corrupt, those who do not have America's citizens' interests in mind, have won. This FISA memo is going to be groundbreaking, is going to be alarming, it's going to be troubling, but it's something that we need to see. I hope that the government does what's right, and I hope that these people finally come around and release the memo to the public. Because that is exactly what needs to be done, and that's exactly what's going to help our nation. One last quick commercial break. Don't go anywhere. This is the Wise Conservative Show. Hey everybody, Connor Wise here with an exclusive sneak peek of the Wise Conservative Show. Don't go anywhere, I'll be right back. What it means to be a conservative is very simple. It means that you want to protect freedoms and liberties. You want to protect the Constitution and limit the government. It's a very simple definition. It's a very simple cause to follow. And this is what a lot of people do kind of value conservatism as.
Ever wanted to learn the history of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in less than 10 minutes? Are you looking for the truth about the so-called gender wage gap? Well, my friends, I'll let you in on a little secret. Prager University is a source that I use all the time when preparing for my show, the Jason Veely Program. Dennis Prager and his team have put together a remarkable organization that seeks to explain and spread Americanism through the power of the internet. Their short yet extremely informative videos reach more than 100 million people per year, and they want to reach you as well. Go on YouTube and type in Prager University, or go to prageru.com for all of their latest content. That's Prager, the letter U.com. prageru.com.
Hey everybody, Connor Wise here with an exclusive sneak peek of the Wise Conservative Show. Don't go anywhere, I'll be right back. With universal health care, which is essentially the next step beyond Obamacare, this is where Democrats want to take the country. This is where the left wants us to go. With universal health care, now there's no insurance companies, no one competing whatsoever, and the government controls it all. Have you ever wanted to stand up to your liberal professor? Have you ever wanted to help expand the conservative movement? Well, it sounds like you would be a perfect fit for Youth Revolt. Youth Revolt is a team of dedicated young conservatives fighting liberal indoctrination within our school system. If you're interested in being a part of this team by being a columnist or even hosting your own radio show, go ahead and click the Join Now tab at the top of youthrevolt.org. You'll be asked to answer a few questions, and a Youth Revolt team member will respond to you quickly. Be a part of something bigger than you. Be a part of Youth Revolt. Speak without fear.
If you got a business, that you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
Get out of here, you idiot. Sorry about that, folks. Jason Veely here, host of the Jason Veely Program. I'm a 22-year-old conservative who is fired up and ticked off at the direction the progressive left have taken this country. Join me every weeknight at 7 o'clock as we promote liberty, advance conservative principle, and work to restore the Constitution of the United States. I can get loud and I can get passionate. How can we afford not to when so much is on the line? Tune in to the Jason Veely Program, live every weeknight at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time on youthrevolt.org. I'll see you out on the battlefield.
I was assuming that it meant coverage, but if he says that there's a small group of people who understood what it was, so I'm like, what is it? What is confetti?
It gets 2 scoops. Everyone around the table gets 1, and no word if there were sprinkles.
He paid $38 million, looks like $38 million in taxes.
Are you tired of listening to the snowflake liberal media report about ice cream scoops and typos instead of real facts? Well, at the Wise Conservative Show, we promise you that we will not report about Kofifi, but instead about the truth. Instead about the facts about what's going on in our nation. Join us every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the Wise Conservative Show for your dose of unapologetic conservative talk radio. The Wise Conservative Show, only on Youth Revolt. Welcome back to the Wise Conservative Show. Once again, I'm your host, Connor Wise. And as promised at the very beginning of the episode, we have a little bit on the Mueller probe. And of course, I've talked about this a lot, so I try to limit the times that I do talk about it. I do try to limit when I talk about it for you guys, because I know that it's been in the news a lot, and I know that I have talked about it a lot myself. But I did have to cover this because it does involve possibly an interview with President Trump. But what's also coming out is more than 20 White House personnel have voluntarily given interviews to Special Counsel Robert Mueller's team that is, of course, investigating Russia in the 2016 election. And a personal attorney for President Trump also said the White House turned over more than 20,000 pages of records to investigators, calling the level of cooperation and transparency, quote, unprecedented. According to a summary of records and witness interviews reviewed, 17 campaign employees, plus 11 others affiliated with the campaign, also have spoken with Mueller's team or congressional committees. Among those who have been interviewed by the team or are expected to be interviewed include former White House Chief of Staff Reince Priebus, former White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer, White House Communications Director Hope Hicks, and former White House Advisor Steve Bannon. The new details came on the day that reports emerged of special counsel's interviews with senior members of the intelligence community, including the Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coates, CIA Director Mike Pompeo, and NSA Director Administrator Mike Rogers. The summary document said the White House had turned over 1,601 documents, totaling 5,079 pages related to the former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn and Russia. The White House also turned over 1,245 documents, 7,799 pages, on former FBI Director James Comey, whom Trump, of course, fired famously last year. And the documents included privileged material of all kind, including to the president's personal attorney. Trump's presidential campaign has turned over 1.4 million pages of documents to Mueller's probe and 28,000 pages to congressional committees. Now, whether Trump himself will ultimately be interviewed by Mueller has been a topic of recent speculation. Earlier this month, Trump cast doubt on that possibility, saying it wouldn't be necessary since there was no collusion. But just today in an interview, Trump said, quote, he's looking forward to it. Folks, Trump has gone back and forth on whether he's actually going to interview with the Mueller probe team. And we've seen Republicans and top officials within the White House urge him not to. And I agree, actually. I don't think President Trump needs to be interviewed by Mueller. We've seen proof time after time that Mueller is a good friend of the previous administration and a good friend of the Democratic Party. We've seen time and time again where he's ignored the blatant disregard of American interests and collusion, essentially, with Russia from the Democratic Party, especially with the dossier that they funded, the DNC funded, with the Uranium One deal that Hillary Clinton reached, and so many other things. Mueller doesn't have America in his interest. He has politics in it because he's a friend of Obama. He's a friend of the DNC. He's a friend of Democrats in general. And so, I mean, we've seen him been going on this probe since, November of last year? November, December. It's been a long time, folks. Or November, December of 2016, if it was then. Folks, this probe has been going on for a very long time. And we haven't really seen anything come out of it, especially in regards to our president. There's a reason why that hasn't happened, and I've said this before. I'm going to continue to say it, folks. It's because there was no collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. It's just a fact. It's a fact that people are continually ignoring, but it's a fact. The whole Russia collusion notion was a narrative that was spewed out of the DNC to try to make an excuse as to why they lost, to try to make another attack to try and discredit our president. They always have these coming out, folks, and they're always going to come up with some new collusion, conspiracy, or what have you about our president, about our party. Because it's their job to try to discredit Republicans and give credit to Democrats. They're the DNC. Of course they're going to do that. But this probe is going on for over a year, and it hasn't found anything in regards to the president. I think it's time to stop the probe. And the fact that President Trump now is opening up the option of an interview, I don't agree with it, folks. I think that President Trump, while he is a great negotiator, he's a great leader. I don't think he always says the perfect things, and he doesn't think a lot of times before he talks. And I think him in an interview with Mueller could result in not necessarily proof of collusion, because that didn't happen, but of him saying something where the Mueller and people can twist and to try to say that it was collusion. There's no good that can come out of this. Those who are going to believe that there was collusion are already going to believe that there was collusion. Those who are going to believe that there wasn't already don't think that there was. That's how it is. Everyone's minds are made up on this because it's been going on for so long. There's no benefit for him doing this, and no benefit for the Trump administration, for the American people, for this interview. But folks, I do want to touch on the fact that we've had this probe been going on for a long, long time. And they've found, Michael Flynn, Manafort, and I think that might be it. There might be one other person that they've found anything against. But that wasn't even necessarily collusion. It was just that they were talking and sharing talking and negotiating with diplomats or with companies from Russia. It wasn't like they were trying to bring Russia into our government. Folks, this probe, it's time for it to end. It's not necessary anymore. It's not good anymore. It's just a waste of taxpayer dollars at this point. And I think the fact that it's continuing to go and it's continued to be dredged out and talked about every week by the news is just keeping the same narrative in place. And I understand why they're doing it. They're doing it because they want to discredit our president. But the fact that they talk about it every week is keeping that narrative in place, is keeping this false narrative in place. And it's just proving the fact that fake news is a thing, folks. It's proving about the fact that corruption can happen in government because Mueller is great friends with the President Obama. There's been much proof of that. But the liberal media never addressed that. The liberal media never addressed the fact that that Mueller doesn't have actual nonpartisan views. All they touch on is the fact that they believe that Trump colluded. And they always say it like a fact. They always say that President Trump actually did. But folks, we all know that he didn't. We all know that that's a lie, that it's a narrative that's being propelled forward by the DNC and by the liberal media itself. But no one who is right in their mind, no one who has been watching reality and keeping track of the facts actually believes it. That's all for today's episode of The Wise Conservative Show. I'd like to thank you all for tuning in, and I'm your host, Connor Wise. You can find me on youthrevolt.org. You can search Youth Revolt up on Facebook and find me at Spreaker.com/TheWiseConservative. And you can find me on iTunes and on TuneIn. Make sure to subscribe to it on both of those places. As always, I'd like to thank you once again, and God bless.